everyone. Welcome back to our channel, Conversations with Ezra. I'm Allegra.
And I'm John.
And today's video is based on your reality. So, this is why you keep attracting the same reality. Change your focus, change everything. You're attracting crap because you keep focusing on it. And here's how to stop.
Every time you focus on something, anything, you're placing an order with the universe. The question is, do you actually want what you're asking for?
Still wondering why some problems keep showing up in your life? It's not a mystery. It's your focus. Your focus. You're literally attracting it with your attention.
So in today's video, we're going to talk about this deliberate intention or deliberate creation. And you're not stuck. You're not cursed, unlucky, or being punished by the universe. You're just focused in a way that keeps attracting the same energy over and over again. But here's the truth. Your focus is your superpower, and it's been shaping your reality this entire time.
Yeah, you're just focused on the wrong, if you know what I mean. And your reality keeps echoing it back to you. It isn't spiritual fluff, it's energetic law. Keep focusing on lack, you'll get more lack. Keep focusing on alignment, guess what happens? Your world shifts.
In this powerful download from Ezra, we'll dive into the energetic truth behind your focus and how it becomes the magnet for your experiences.
So this is Ezra's tidbit of information, inspiration,
I do that
well,
all the
and,
time
and
too. And
information
information.
for you guys for today. It says your focus is your point of attraction, meaning the thing that you intentionally choose to look upon is what you will attract in your reality. We would advise to be deliberate in your focus more often if you are wanting to elicit a certain outcome from the universe.
So
So,
are you ready to shift the script? It starts with one decision. What will you choose to look upon today?
yep. So hit play, realign your focus, and attract something new.
All right. So we're going to bring in Ezra now.
Yes.
And we'll be
And
right
we'll be
back.
right back. We are here.
Welcome back.
Good to be back.
So today we're doing a video for our channel, and we're talking about you get what you think about. Really is what we're talking about. Deliberate creation. And we have some questions for you today, Ezra. So we're just going to start with the first one here. How does your focus become a magnet for what shows up in your lives, in our lives? What? How,
As you choose to focus, if you are speaking from an energetic view, as you choose to focus, meaning your attention, then what happens over time is if you continue to look at the same thing for a period of time or any number of times, you will notice that the universe starts sending back to you some of exactly what you are looking at. At first, it begins in small ways, and if you are not understanding the law of how it actually works and the law of attraction, then you won't pay attention. But if you understand and you see those things coming back to you first a little bit at a time, and then increasingly more and more, then that is how you shape and experience your reality with certain things. Another asking,
yeah. So what's the difference between passive focus and deliberate focus?
passive focus is what you would consider to be the things that you are looking at, not really having an interest, but because it is there, you look at it, you may comment on it from time to time, but it is not something that you are wanting really to have any opinion around. So it's not giving it any energy when you focus on it. It just sort of passes in and out. And deliberate focus is looking at things that you actually want to experience in your reality, having an opinion about it in a positive way, looking at the ways it would benefit you. And in that, focusing from that point, you start to see it come more and more into your reality. We would also like to point out that there is a point between deliberate and unfocused reality, where there is one that is of absolute unwanted, where you keep focusing on something, usually because of ignorance of not knowing the laws of attraction, and usually following a crowd and the opinion of others, and you tend to take your focus there. Some may consider it not focus, but it is still focus. And that is when you start to shape your reality with the things that are unwanted. Another asking,
Yeah, so this one's really personal to me. Why do I keep focusing on things I don't want, even when I know better? I mean, we've been doing this for a while now, and I still do it, and I'm not sure why.
so we are going to introduce another aspect of the creativity that some of you may know and some may not. There is something called momentum, meaning, in a more general term, you can't help yourself but to look at the things you are not wanting because you have looked at it for so long that the momentum of that thing is there. Now, if you look at a certain thing for a long period of time, at any given time, more than a few seconds, then there is this thing that we call momentum. And the longer you look, you give momentum to these things. The more you focus on it, you give momentum to these things. And whether you are wanting this thing or not, the momentum happens. There is an absolute in that. So you will keep creating the things that you are not wanting. You will keep looking at the things that you are not wanting to look at because you have created momentum in looking at it in the past. So the easiest way to not have those things come into your reality is to change the focus and the momentum. Choose to not look at it as often and as long as you can or have been doing each time you find yourself looking at something that is not wanted. Another asking,
So, what's one practice we can do on a daily basis to realign our focus with what we really want?
well, we would say to you, as you are starting to understand the way the laws of the universe work in terms of focus, where you are putting your energy and how things are coming back to you, as you find yourself in a moment of looking at something that is not wanted, the idea is not to beat up on yourself, but to understand that it is happening because of that momentum that we spoke about. So we would advise each moment that you catch yourself looking or focusing on something that is not wanted, whether it is by visually putting your attention on it or thinking about it, we would say a simple thing would be to understand within yourself that the beginning of turning that unwanted thing around is you've understood and you are catching yourself with the thought or the visualization of it. So, as you come to understand that if I am looking at this thing that I am not wanting, and I know that it's going to create some sort of a feedback in my reality, on, say to yourself, yes, I caught myself. And in the realization and acknowledgement that you've caught yourself going into a place of not wanting and creating momentum around it, you find that automatically you start looking for something else if you are easy about it. But a lot of humans tend to be harsh with themselves. I've looked at this thing that I do not want to have in my reality again. Why do I keep looking at this thing?
Hmm.
Everybody is looking at this thing and I don't want it in my reality. But as you do that, you are still holding your attention to it. The idea is to see and be aware of when it is happening. And in any way possible, if you can shift the focus, then you are really starting to change the way your reality will be formed. Another asking,
So is it ever okay to look at a problem, negative situation, or does that always attract more of it?
as long as you're alive, you will continue to see things that we will deem negative or unwanted. And in the noticing of the unwanted, you are then at that point coming into the realization of what you would prefer to have. So the negative things are not something to deem as bad. The negative things are not something that you should consider you would never like to have in your experience. Because from the negative, there is the positive of knowing what you would like to have. And as you recognize that that negative thing is not what you want, that thing that you are observing is a thing that you know is not going to serve you in any way, you've now identified that it is an unwanted. And as soon as you have identified the thing that is unwanted, you immediately send out to the universe thoughts and desires of something that is wanted, which is the opposite of the unwanted. You may not know exactly what it may be, but you've identified that you would like to experience something different. And as you start to understand that this is what happens when you are looking at the unwanted, you will find as time goes by, you will start to identify the essence of what it is wanted and start moving towards that. And that is the role of the negative thing, is to help you identify the things that you are truly wanting. Another asking,
So when we talk about negative or problems, that sort of thing, that's actually I've heard this in other teachings that it's contrast, and we're not to hate contrast. We're to embrace contrast. Is that
yes,
right?
we are, you as humans and us from our side knew, and you know, and we know that when you were coming into this reality, that the contrast would serve you. So the contrast is a thing that help you, if you will, build your life experience. And in that contrast coming about, you would understand whether you continue to keep your focus there or to identify the things that are wanted. Each contrast is viewed differently by each individual. Understand that what you may consider a contrast for you may be a positive for some. And what may be a positive for you may be a contrast for some. It
Mm.
all depends on where you are at any moment in time, on any day, any night, any week, any month, any year. So the contrast is actually what we would say to you a personal thing. Also, the positive. It is what your experiences are bringing back to you that you define as a contrast in order to move forward with your living. Another asking,
So this one applies to me as well. I was in my past. I've been stuck in a loop, especially focusing on lack and focusing on not enough money. And money's where I struggle with that, and I tend to get stuck in a loop, and I get overwhelmed. And I'm changing that, and things are changing in my life because of it. But others out there may not understand that. So how do you get out of that loop? That's stuck, when you're stuck in a loop and you're overwhelmed.
as we said before, do not beat yourself up when you are noticing that you're in a negative situation or that contrast. The easiest thing to do, the easiest way to get you turn around is to understand and recognize that the contrast is there, not to pretend that it is not there. The second thing would be to be kinder to yourself as you observe yourself in the contrast. So saying things like, okay, so I understand that this is not what I would like to experience. I also understand that in time I will start to understand what it is I actually want out of this experience. And as I understand what it is I want out of this negative experience, I will start turning my attention towards those things. And as you say those statements to yourself or the like, you would
Hmm.
find that thoughts, you start thinking, well, what is it do I actually want? Not why am I here again, but what it is do I actually want? And that is the turning point you'd like to get yourself to. For as you start to ask yourself the questions of what it is do I actually want? What experiences would I like to have going forward? Your imagination sets in and you start thinking of things that are more pleasing. And as you start thinking about things that are more pleasing, those desires are what the universe also responds to. So it is a choice between the desires or the contrast. And as the desires are being put forth in that pure way, because now you are really paying attention to what it is you would like to have, those experiences are already lined up for you as immediately as identifying it. And as the experiences are lined up for you, your work at that point is to understand that it is done, the experiences are there for you, and now you are going to allow the universe to show you the ways in which you can allow it into your physical reality experience. And sometimes that can be for some asking for the easiest way for it to come to you of the universe and looking for the clues that are being sent to you in order to move towards it. Sometimes it depends on how far down a rabbit hole in the contrast you are. The easiest thing to do is identify that you are not wanting where you want to be. You would like to experience something else and move on to something else. Take your mind off of the situation altogether. For as you take your mind out of the situation altogether, you are dumbing down the focus energy, that momentum behind it. You're letting it have a chance to become less and less. Understood?
Understood. I, I've in my past, I've had a before learning more about Ezra's teachings here. One of the things I used to do was kind of bang myself on the forehead and go stupid, 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 like be really hard on myself, slap my hand, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Um, and I've realized, and people could probably identify with this, but I realized that doesn't work. That beating up on myself.
That's right.
So I understand what you're saying now. Is just recognizing that if I'm feeling stuck there, is to just pivot to look in a different direction. Just leave it be and try focus on something that is more pleasing, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay.
If you keep banging your elbow, try looking at your foot. It takes the focus off the elbow, no?
Absolutely.
Precisely. So try to do the same with certain situations. Just
Mm-hmm.
give it a rest for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes humans believe that the more they're in a negative position, in a contrasting situation, if they can sit in it, the longer they think they will be able to get out of it. But it is quite the opposite. You just find yourself in another situation that seems similar and another situation that seems similar, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not actually allowing yourself enough time to identify what you would like out of those contrasting moments to be the thing that you are really wanting to experience. Another asking,
So, what would you say to someone who feels like the universe isn't responding, like almost picking on them, even though they're trying to focus intentionally?
give it a rest.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we know that there are some of you who have been in a situation where you're trying to receive the answer for a particular problem. And you are sitting in the problems. Days will go by, hours will go by, and you cannot seem to see anything that is going to point you in the direction that you're needing to be in. And then you get distracted by a cat, maybe a dog, some noise, another situation if you've got children. One of them distracts you into doing something else that is completely away from what it is you are needing to find the solution. And as you've moved away from that issue, that contrast, you find that as you are busying yourself with something else, the solution comes to mind. That aha moment takes place. Or what sometimes happen is you take time away from the problem because you are distracted by something else. You go back to it, and there is the answer, as you would say, staring you in the face. You couldn't see it before. But what has happened in that moment is as you were staring at that issue, that contrast, that problem, you were putting out to the universe that you would like to experience something different, which is the answer, the solution. And as you were putting that out there to the universe, it was immediately given to you, but you couldn't see it because you stubbornly insisted on sitting in the problem. So as you moved yourself away and removed some of the momentum and the focus off of the problem, the universe, in your allowing moment, in that time of not paying attention to it, the answer was given to you and you were in a place of being able to receive it. And that is how desires turn into reality. The ideas, the wanting, the moving towards turn into reality because you allow yourself to receive it by not being in the problem, not being in the issue of what is at hand. Another asking,
Yeah, just a final message to people who have been stuck for a long time, who are almost like they're afraid to even hope for something better. What's your message to those people?
if you are way, way down in that place of only seeing the problem, it is because you have gradually gotten yourself to that point of only being able to see that. So it will take a gradually coming back to the other side of it. So we would say the first thing you can do for yourself is to understand that the contrast is there for you to identify what you are wanting. And that creates a bit of ease. We would say to understand that it is okay to have the contrast, and that provides a bit of ease. We would say to also say to yourself that the answer will come when I allow it to come. That also creates a bit of ease. You can even go further by saying to yourself, you know that the answer is there for you out of this situation, and you know that you can line up with it, and there is ease that you feel. We would also say to you that acknowledge that it is going to take you a bit of time to get from where you are to where you would like to be, and also acknowledge that you will do your best bit by bit to get to where you need to be. And as you are doing these things, being nicer to yourself, going about finding the pleasure or just the relief in those statements, you would find that the answers will start to come one by one to the situation that you are deeming hopeless. For no contrast situation is hopeless. It is only hopeless because you deem it to be. There may be someone that is so close to you looking at the same hopeless situation with the answer, but you cannot line up with that because you've deemed it hopeless. It might be someone sitting right next to you who is saying, but if you try this thing, it may work. And in your hopelessness and insistence of it being hopeless, you continue to deem it hopeless by saying, no, it cannot work. So you stay in that vibration. But if you are easy with yourself and saying the answer is there, and I can line up with it, and I will line up with it, then that person that is sitting next to you with the answers, as they bring it forth to you, you will find that there is a bit of receptivity to what they are saying. Even though you may not see all of it at once, The turning point is the willingness to listen. Understood?
Understood.
Yes. So everything is bit by bit because you did not get yourself into a moment of despair just like that. It's a gradual shifting of the emotion. We would say if you drive, you're gearing down to the lower end of that vibrational output. So now you have to shift and gear up to the higher vibration, and that's very gradual. If you try to go from lower to the higher all in one move, a lot of times what happens is you shoot yourself in the foot and you go right back to the despair because you're trying to take yourself to a place where you do not believe you can get to, or you do not believe that there is a solution. So you have to gradually get yourself back to that point of believing that there is a solution and believing that you can find the solution and believing that others may have that solution for you and believing that the contrast is the exact thing that you needed in order to move to a certain point in your life. Understood?
Understood.
Another asking.
Nope. I think you wrapped this one up in a really tight bow with for a present for us. So we really appreciate everything you've told us today.
And we appreciate the opportunity. And we would also like to say, as you said, to tie it up, always remember that contrast is not neither good or bad until you deem it to be either or. So when you are softly looking at something that is unwanted, you have the choice in that moment to decide is going to be this negative thing that I'm going to focus more on, or it is going to be this thing that I'm going to find my next jumping off point from. What do I want that is going to serve me from this? Again, we appreciate the opportunity. Until our next interaction, good day.
Welcome
Hi.
back.
Hi.
So uh, this was basically talking about contrast a lot and deliberate creating, and
Yes.
we it's about thinking about what you don't want. You find out what you don't want, and then you figure out what you do want and
Mm-hmm.
focus on that. It's really
Yeah.
it sounds a lot easier than it is. Trust me. I'm a
Well,
work in progress myself.
you're a
So
work in progress, but I think it also is easier than you think it is because sometimes you do it on default.
mm, that's
That's what
true.
I would like to say because
Yeah.
I know for myself, I've done, and Ezra is still coming through just a little bit as well. And, but it is easy, but you deem it not easy because it's been a
Mm,
practice of not easy,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So if you're
Hmm.
practicing the not easy of every situation that comes up, then guess what? It's just not going to be easy. But there are some of you out there we know because there are certain things in our life where we've focused on it. It was a little bit of contrast, but we just kind of quickly just kind of move on,
Pivot.
right? We moved away from it and things turned around. And
Hmm.
there are some of you out there that probably have noticed that there were some things that you it wasn't what you wanted. You didn't make a big deal out of it, and you just kind of moved away from it. But there are also some things where it came up, and when it should not have been a big deal, you made a big deal, you moved away from it, it came up again, you made another big deal out of it, and eventually you got this thing,
Hmm.
and now you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just practice. I
Yep.
think for me, it's just practice. I
Yeah.
think we've gotten better at practicing,
Yeah.
identifying and moving out of it a lot faster than just sitting in it and saying, okay, so here's a problem,
Mhm.
telling everybody we've got a problem, trying to get everybody's input about the problem, and keeping the problem going because now we don't have an answer for the problem.
Mhm.
Just saying. Yeah,
Pivoting.
pivoting,
Yeah.
moving away from it
Yeah.
as much as you can, distracting yourself with a movie, taking a nap, doing something,
Hmm. Yep.
and yeah. So it's interesting. I'm going to listen to what Ezra had to say about it
Hmm.
too.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think as you do it a little bit more and more often, it becomes easier to. I don't think it's the actual pivoting in terms of the action. I think what becomes easier is identifying
Yep.
that you're sitting with something that you don't want.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
think it's the identifying of sitting with something that you don't want. Sometimes we sit with things that we don't want and don't realize that it's something we don't want. We just kind of sit there, whether it's because it's familiar or the people around us are doing it and we think we have to,
Hmm.
but the more you do it, I think is the easier it becomes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys got something out of this. I know I did.
Yeah.
Again, it was very entertaining for me and very educational. Again, I learn more stuff every time I
Yeah.
listen to Ezra. So
Please like, subscribe, share, comment. We would like to hear your comments on these. These are good points. I mean, I'm commenting right now after I get up, after I come back in the forefront because I know it's good stuff. So
Mhm.
let us know. You can agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. Sometimes in the disagreeing of a comment or a phrase or a point that Ezra brought up, you find that that brings in a deeper discussion so we can
Mhm.
take it further.
Yeah.
So, bring it on. We want to hear what you guys have to say. So, have a good one. And until our next video, take care. See you guys later.
See you soon.